4, 3.
We'll do it live.
Now we're live! Erin Kennedy. The general craziness of it, the impact on your life.
We have gone through so many stories and we said, you know what? This should not be kept to the two of us.
So I just hear, oh, I did it wrong.
I pressed my buttons in the wrong order. Megan, it's tough to be director and talent. I'm not used to this. I'm just a pretty face. Stop asking me to do things.
I know. At actual technical things, like forget it. I literally was doing, I'm not even kidding. I was doing a live like meeting with like hundreds of people yesterday on Zoom.
Wow.
I could not figure out how to open my PowerPoint thing right.
Ooh, you had a PowerPoint?
I didn't make it. Somebody sent it to me.
Okay. Yeah. You just had to open it.
I still can't make that stuff. I have no idea how. I don't want to. It's the stuff I don't want to learn. That's under that category.
I was on a Teams meeting the other day and I was trying to share my screen. And I was like, all right, guys, just are you seeing, is this one? Do you see what I'm seeing? And like, how did I don't know what happened. Is like, all of a sudden COVID hit. We were broadcasting from our basements, which looks like $1 million, by the way.
So good.
Yeah. In fact, we should pull up one of those old newscasts because you would never know. I think I may have looked my best in my basement.
Dude, I know I did. I had like clutch lighting. I wanted to like take it with me for EVs. Yeah.
I just walk around with
lighting. Yeah.
But now somehow we missed, learning how to be on Zoom and Teams. And we already knew we don't know how to PowerPoint and Excel and stuff. Okay, Megan. Yeah. Favorite episodes that we've done recently. Tell and hi everybody, and we're live. And it's hi those who are watching who are not live.
Oh, favorite episode recently is definitely our Don Daler interview that we did last week. You guys should go check it out on our YouTube channel. You'll see it's Don Daler, and he's just the best. So if you covered wars, you know what I'm saying? Like all that stuff that you wonder what it's really like. He kind of answers all those questions. I thought that was fascinating.
It seems like a lot of our guests find traction when they're in the Chicago market because that's the shared background that you and I have. But we really feel like there are some people in this industry. Don is at the top of the list where his stories will resonate with everybody.
Well, and if you were watching TV on 9/11/2001, which I suspect everyone here likely was, no matter how old you were, because the entire world was glued to the TV that day. Don was the first person live on the scene from that day down in Manhattan. And so that story is wild as well. Just to hear that. So anyway, that was a really awesome one. And then I just like it when we're goofy and we post like old crazy videos of us. People tend to like those I'm seeing. So we've got a lot.
Our shorts. Definitely visit our shorts lately. And that does remind me though, Meg. So I brought my box of junk. Old DVC Pros, old VHS, old DVDs.
Okay, so just so those of you who at home are like, this is like how we used to keep our reels and stuff. Like, oh, I'm going to get this tape and I'm going to send this tape to my agent to make as part of my reel or whatever it is so I can try to get a new job or whatever. So you always collecting
my VHS, Megan, which I didn't even know I kept, which was my very first reel that I made from my college internships.
I want to see that.
I can't wait to show it. I can't wait to see it again.
Oh my God. I don't even know where mine is. I did a story one time and Lance, my husband, was my photographer. And literally, because it was still in college and I had to do a package for a piece I was doing. And I went out and covered where there was supposedly was like a chemical leak into a river by these people's house. And they were proving it to me with all like fish and all this stuff.
Like a real story?
Dude, in hindsight, I'm like, oh my God, what did I uncover that no one paid attention to? Oh my God. But Lance shot it and I did like a stand up and everything. I would love to see that. I have no idea where that is now.
Okay. You need to please go and find it. Okay.
Yes.
I want to see baby Megan reporting on some huge chemical spill that no one else knew about.
How about baby Megan, where I have a tape where I'm like, you'll just want to watch out for, because it was a storm. You watch out for big trees.
So they're coming for you. Those
Oh,
big
yeah.
trees are coming for you.
That's somewhere.
Okay, so yes, that will be hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks, I will
Okay.
have my
Yay.
stuff.
Yay.
And we just want to kindly remind everyone that we are broadcasting now on our Facebook pages. But in order to keep up with these stories that Megan and I are sharing, please like and subscribe on our YouTube, Broken News with Erin and Megan, where
Yeah.
we have all these great interviews and kind of
Some fun
content,
little
behind the
shorts, all
scenes.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, all the good stuff. Today, though, we wanted to, of course, hop on to talk about the big headlines in the media world, which is Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon both leaving, being booted a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say leaving or being left because it's
Being
more like
left,
being
yeah.
left.
You're
Yeah.
right. And so this was kind of this article was a good little roundup of some people who've been
And
shown
so
the door.
if you're like watching at home wondering like how do you know that Tucker Carlson didn't leave on his own? Well, because on Friday he literally said see you Monday and then he didn't.
And
I
they
feel
didn't give
like
him a farewell show, which a lot of people were talking about. And Megan and I, we've talked a lot about in local news, they very rarely let you have a farewell show because they're afraid that in live TV that you're going to say things that you're not supposed to. But with Tucker Carlson having empirically the most watched show in the nation, it is kind of
although
interesting.
on cable because if you look at Tucker's show compared to like ABC, NBC, CBS, their ratings are higher than his. He just had the highest in cable from what I saw.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that was an interesting thing that I heard and I think it was Moshe that was talking about it where like everyone thinks that he had so many viewers and he did indeed have so many viewers of course, but still sort of paled in comparison to what was going on at the typical networks. But I mean, either way, the dude is out. And now what? Where'd he go? Maybe like, is he done? Who knows?
So
I mean,
if you wanted to compare apples to apples, Bill O'Reilly held that slot before Tucker Carlson, which is the banner show. What's the word I'm looking for when it's there? Not banner. Flat. Yeah. One of the
whatever.
above.
Their main dude. He was their main dude.
But
They're
you
pissed.
wonder, of course, I don't think that we have seen or heard the last of him, but will it be a podcast? Will it be a presidential run? That's interesting.
Oh.
But to me, what makes this a little bit, I don't know, interesting to me is that I think that Fox News always wants to say, you are not bigger than us.
Lately,
I
it
think
certainly
that
seems that
Tucker
way.
Carlson, not only was it text
Megyn Kelly.
messages that were exchanged internally and, the whole Dominion lawsuit thing, but he at one point had said, which came out with the, when they were gathering evidence about the lawsuit, that he could say anything on air. And I think he probably could have, but I think that at some point Fox was like, you're not bigger than we are. And we'll
Not
show
only
you
that, but when you have to settle for like $780 something million, some heads got to roll somewhere. Am I right? Like you don't just have to pay out that incredible amount of money and then just leave everything status quo. Feel like
I don't
they
know.
had
It's
to
not
do
like
something.
it's not like advertisers though. We're saying that Tucker Carlson had to go.
That's
He had
true.
more pushback when he was kind of caught up saying
Yeah.
some pretty sexist things.
And then what about Don Lemon? Because to me, like he did so many things through so many years. So like what was the final catalyst for that one? Like I would have thought this would have happened over a month ago or 2 months ago when he was talking about, how women were
Nikki Haley was past her prime.
Yes, past her prime.
I wonder if part of it was, so he got moved from evenings to mornings, which I think was a little bit less prestigious than
Their
what he
ratings
had
were
hoped.
not great either.
And their ratings weren't good.
Yeah.
And you generally have bubble wrap all around you if your ratings are good, We have a good question coming in from Clark. In your opinion, because of their contracts, will they get paid, or if they're gone for cause, they get zero? I would bet they're both
They've got
getting paid.
agents. You think they'll get paid?
I do.
I do too. I think when you are at that sort of level of like prestige and like, yeah, come on, they're paying him so much money. There's some ironclad stuff in that contract because you have a leg to stand on when you're Tucker Carlson and you're negotiating, or his team rather is negotiating. Yeah, for sure. Like they're getting paid. I guarantee it.
Right. So maybe that will come out later what they are getting paid.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what most local people, even when you're terminated or laid off within the duration of your contract, you will still get paid out the end of your
Yeah,
contract.
you'll get paid through the end of your contract, or you'll get like and plus severance or whatever that may be, unless it's for cause. And that cause though has to be pretty major. You have to be able to prove it, all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. It's just like so many people are out. Like if you pull that picture back up, like Chris Cuomo was there, Cuomo's out. Tucker Carlson's out. Don Lemon's out, and Bill O'Reilly and
But Brian Williams is back in. And I think Brian Williams
Yeah.
is back in because his sin was remembering a story incorrectly, according to him.
Yes.
Which he said he was in what was it, like a live fire situation? But I feel like now if you are on sex criminal boat, it's less likely that you're going to be welcomed back,
Yeah.
And
100%.
I'm sure I wonder if Tucker Carlson would go to like Newsmax or OAN where they would certainly love to have him, but a much smaller audience. It'll be very interesting to see what his next steps are.
Well, and he may pull his audience with him because he certainly
I
had
don't
one.
know about that.
Or did they stay put? I don't know.
Bill O'Reilly wasn't able to pull him with him.
That's true. I mean, all I know is though, if you're on TV, like I used to think I would be immune to being fired at some point,
When did you think that?
Because I never had been for literally 17 years. Always like got my renewal and I decided to just because all around me all the whole time it was happening. It had never happened to me. Well, then of course at some point it gonna happen to all y'all. I don't care who you think you are, whatever. And it wasn't like an ego thing. I just was like, man, I've survived everything so far. Maybe I'm actually going to be that rare person who makes it all the way through until I decide to stop. But no.
I feel like when it was happening all around me, it's just like, oh, my days are numbered.
Yeah, well,
they're coming.
That's the thing. It's like even Tucker Carlson, really, you would think he's not going to have that problem, or like a multitude of others. I mean, Katie Couric, out at some point. Everybody. And even when somebody really amazing decides to step down or quit their show, you have to wonder if they're really wanting to quit or if the network, because of time in and importance of character, has allowed them to step away as opposed to getting fired, right? Like, I think that happens sometimes too at those higher levels and we just don't know it. This was very obviously a firing for these two.
Well, and then speaking of Fox News, post Roger Ailes, and then they have a woman now who is leading, the news department. And that part of the speculation was with the stories that had come out with Roger Ailes that she was like, no more of, mistreatment of women and ranking your guests on order of hotness and this. I mean, that's going to happen, especially when you're at the top of the food chain like Tucker Carlson, when you feel untouchable.
Yeah. And you do. I'm telling you, you feel that way. And especially because he's allowed to have an opinion. So it's not like in the local media where like really you shouldn't be having an opinion and maybe you let it slip too much and maybe you got a bullseye on you because of that. Now, no, they wanted his opinion. His opinion was the reason his show was so popular, I think.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'd kind of forgotten about that.
Dude, but at this point, if you're Tucker Carlson, like, is your ego so wrapped up into all of this that you're like, I got to get back on the air somehow, or I got to start my podcast, or I got to whatever, or is it that he wants to make more money? Because God knows he's got to have enough to retire comfortably for the rest of his life. So what happens to somebody like that? Like, for both of us, we were just kind of like, cool, time to move on to something else. Kind of wanted to anyway. Cool, awesome. But like, when your ego is way up here, and then do you feel like you have to get back in, or do you think they just go quietly into the night? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's Glenn Beck, who preceded Bill O'Reilly, Tucker Carlson. But even their forays into Act 2
were not good.
Yeah.
Well, then think about the people who were fired for like, sexual type stuff, like Matt Lauer. I haven't heard from him again. Where's he? I don't know. Charlie Rose, he like went off to his apartment in Paris or something like that, never to be heard of again. I don't know what he's doing. Although I think he may have been back to his PBS show. Am I right? Or he was doing it on his Instagram or something. Swear. I think he may have done a few more shows. Although I'm guessing nobody's watching at this point. He's got to be also like 105.
So here's You've met Charlie a million and one times, right?
I've worked with Charlie. Yeah.
I interviewed him when he came to Chicago for an event. I can't remember the event. But so I interviewed him so that we could turn it on the morning news. And then afterward, we took some photos and this and that. And this is just, it's such a strange disconnect with my one moment, my interaction with him. He was so polite to the fact that when we were standing to take photos, he said, "Is it okay if I put my hand on your back?" And I mean, that never happens because, I mean, part of the
Usually
job is
people
you're
just
always,
do.
huh?
I mean, I'm not going to say who the guest was, but you recall a certain guest that we used to have into the studio all the time where you were hoping the hand didn't drool farther south. You know exactly who I'm talking about. But like, yeah, you're right. For him to actually ask about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm not and never would be one of those people who's like, "Oh, he's the perfect gentleman. Of course, he could never be capable of doing that." I was like, that's strange. All I said was, "Wow, that was very different from my experience."
Yeah. I mean, he was never anything but respectful when I worked with him. But that being said, I always like, there was some kind of I've always felt a little uncomfortable, but it's like I could have been uncomfortable because I was working with Charlie Rose at the network. It could have been what it was. You know what I mean? Never know. But never, ever was anything said or anything. But obviously, people have had very, very different experiences than ours. The point is, these people, when they're gone, oftentimes off that incredibly high pedestal, can't really usually climb back up to those heights again. It's rare, I think.
Yeah, so Scott Summers is pointing out that Glenn Beck has a media company, still has his radio show.
No, but like you just don't hear about it as much. So I'm guessing
Yeah.
it's not getting as many views and stuff as what he was doing before.
Yeah.
C'est la vie, Aaron. The businesses with the businesses. That's a lot of firings, though, in literally 24 hours. And that was kind of crazy. I was like, we got to dip on and talk about this because that's nuts.
Well, and I still want to do a separate episode about Les Moonves now that our NDAs are no longer.
Yeah. Well, so the man who's helming CNN right now, Chris Licht, I worked for Chris a lot of times and never thought he was anything but awesome. Like the dude is great. He was doing Colbert and now he's over there running CNN. Right. And so it's like, he's got really, in my opinion, really great judgment about talent, and building a great,
yeah, he's known for it.
show. Yeah. I mean, Morning Joe, all that stuff that he's done. So I'm excited to see now that he's obviously getting a chance to reboot this morning show and getting rid of Don Lemon, like, now what's he going to build?
He's been there for a while, right?
He has, but I think it's a chess game that's not very quick at that level. Like you've got so many big money contracts and you've got probably like committees upon committees to make decisions about big shows like that. So I have a feeling that, my point is I don't think he's built the show he wants yet. And I'm really interested to see what that's going to be because he's got a real history for building some cool stuff and some awesome shows. And so like, who's he going to put in that spot? And when you're in charge of CNN, you've probably got the money and the clout to be able to get those people. Cause I remember, when people would leave, CBS or whatever, you and I were always hoping for somebody like amazing, but probably they couldn't afford them or they wouldn't want to move to Chicago. Well, again, this is in New York and it's CNN and they've got the money. So now who are they going to plug into that spot? Like who's the perfect person? I don't know.
What was tough though, too, is at some point CBS Chicago started to get a reputation because of how quickly we move through talent.
Oh, yeah. How many morning shows did I go through? Oh, my God. Like literally the grouping. I don't even remember. I sat down and counted at one point, but it was like well into the double digits of the teams that I had been a part of.
And it's crazy because to be offered a job or to even audition for the third largest market and then to even entertain the possibility of like, well, I don't know if this is worth it to me because I'd probably be in and out in 2 years,
Yeah. And that's one of the things that like, if you have an agent, your agent will tell you, like, I remember hearing like, well, it may be the third largest market, but there's a lot of turnover at that shop or morale's not that great at that shop or whatever it may be. And they'll tell you that about all different kinds of markets. Mostly there were negative things going on. All of these,
excuse me. When I was in Ohio, I reached out to Brad Edwards, who's still at CBS Chicago, wonderful human being through a mutual friend. And I said, hey, can you tell me more about the station? And he said, well, listen, Brad, always very honest. He 100%. Said, let's talk through, who were the predecessors. And I mean, including some really high profile people like Lester Holt and, other people who were let go at CBS Chicago, huge talents, well known in the industry. And he said, but look at him now.
Right.
Even if you can swallow the pill that you might only be there for 2 years,
A good
it's still
stepping
going to look
stone, I
really
guess.
good, right, on a
Sure.
resume.
And that's why you take a job like something like in Chicago or New York or, LA, because then you have Chicago, New York, or LA on your resume even if you get fired. It's better to get fired from Chicago than to get fired from like Des Moines or Parkersburg or something like that. Am I
And
right?
better yet to just not get fired ever, but we wouldn't know.
No. But you know what? I don't know. Like I slept like a full 8 last night though. So I feel like I'm good. But yeah, I don't know, guys. That news though is interesting. And there's so much change right now. And I think there and some things are being like illuminated that people may not have known before about Fox News and other networks. And it can be interesting to see where this all falls because it's all changing.
And let's do a separate episode on non-competes and NDAs.
Yeah. Who that is. What is that?
Non-competes have been in the headlines more recently too because everybody's signing non-competes, which is bananas.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
producers too at stations, which means essentially that there's like a blackout period where you can't go and work for a station across the street within the same market because you're essentially bringing trade secrets. Now, I can get it if you're on air because sometimes there are people who are so popular that viewers will actually switch allegiances.
Yeah, they'll follow. Sure. Yeah. Like, and then that's the combo of like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah's out over here. Oh my God, let's try to get them. That kind of thing happens all the time.
When I worked in Lubbock, Texas, there was a woman who was so popular and just beautiful and lovely. And she was at the NBC station and they were always like the number one. And she ended her contract to come to work with us at CBS. But she had, I want to say it was a 6-month non-compete. But we wanted to hype it up, the fact that she was going to come to CBS, but we couldn't say her name because neither could the station say her name. So she would come in and would like help write scripts and this and that. But they started producing commercials where the main male anchor had just like cards. And it was like, she's coming. And he would drop it. You really like her.
Like you might know who this is.
Yeah.
Here's her hand.
And then like a date for when she was coming. So it was kind of tongue in cheek. Like we can't say anything, but we know, but
also worst secret ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right. So that was it. We just wanted to hop on real quick and say that. But yes, more interesting things coming. This was just kind of an opportunity to say hello to everybody. And again, thank you to everybody who's liked and subscribed.
Yep.
What else am I forgetting, Megan?
Anything? I don't think anything. I just feel like you should go back and watch the Don Daler episode if you have not, if you have time, because that was interesting. Like just to know what people are going through when they're covering wars and things like that and get that perspective. That was pretty cool. Otherwise, we're just going to post some crazy stuff off my old, I'll just dig back in my phone.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
crazy videos I can find.
Daler is doing real journalism and Megan and Aaron can't stop laughing. Professional versus pretending to be professional.
This, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Speaking of, I got to go be a pro in my other job. So
you can do it. All right. Bye, Megan. Bye, everybody. See ya.
Bye.